Hi, it's Neva at timeforinvesting.com, and today I'm doing this. I'm answering a question that I get often, and a lot of times because I wholesale property, which is that I get property under contract at a discount price compared to how much the property is worth after repairs. And a lot of times people are always like, I don't understand why someone will sell their property at a discount. So I just wanted to give some examples of transactions that I've actually worked on and closed and use those to provide some type of information or kind of understand potential sellers that are out there, what they're going through, and how we can help. So the first one I wrote down was one that I closed, and there were a few questions I wrote down, like how did I find a deal and things like that I'll go through. So my first question is how did I find this particular deal? And so this one I actually called. It was a landlord, and I just called him in a very conversational way and said, I'm a real estate investor in the area, and I see that you're an investor as well with rental property. I'm just calling to see if you're interested in selling any of your properties. And that's basically all I said. And it just starts a conversation that sometimes they'll ask me, which property are you looking to buy? Because sometimes they own more than one. And that's their way of really telling me that, because usually I don't know. Right, I'm just calling to see. And so this particular one I called, and I think the first thing he kind of said was, like how much, would you pay or something like that. He's like, oh, I might be interested, blah, blah, blah. So that's how I actually found the property, and once we came to an agreeable price. So the next question I have to share with you guys to let you understand what were his motivations, why he decided to sell this property to me. Number one, this was a multi-unit, and he was renting it to several different tenants. And one of his big things was he wanted to sell it without notifying the tenants. So like back then, this is a deal I closed, I think a year or two ago. And so back then I had like this huge "We Buy Houses" sign on my truck. And so he had even asked me to please take it down when I came to view the property, because, just in case any of the tenants were home. Because actually, he even scheduled it. He wanted me to schedule it to come out during business hours where tenants would be at work, because he really didn't want them to have any indication or to think for a minute that he might sell. Because a lot of times when, a house is on the market, tenants panic and they start looking for a place to live, or they think the new landlord is going to throw them out. They think the new landlord is going to throw them out. And so he really, he didn't want that, because he was saying, sometimes people come and the deal falls apart, and then now his tenants are gone. And so that's one of his big motivations. He wanted a buyer that will buy it with the tenants in all the units and not notify the tenants until after the transaction was 100% complete. So that was one of his motivations, right? So that right there tells you that is not a typical sell, because a lot of people are gonna, they want to go in, they want to close with the units empty sometimes and things like that. The other thing was that one of his motivations, he had a set price that he would accept. And so one of the things when you're negotiating, you're trying to figure out what is that price, that minimum price that the seller will accept. And so what I use to get to that price sometimes is to ask the seller, what are their plans after the house is sold? And then that will sometimes get me the information I need when they start talking, oh, well, I'm going to take the money to buy another house. I'm going to take the money to do this and to do that. And then, I can follow up, well, about how much money will you need to do that? When will you, so it's just a good question to at least get that started, because a lot of times when you ask people, what's the minimum they'll accept, they're not going to give you an answer. So you got to, that's when negotiation comes into play, and you have to use other ways to get the information you need and come up with the best way that I can help. So once I got to that, he said, okay, he was going to use these funds for another investment he was getting into. So he said, okay, listen, if you can get me this, like say it was $400,000. He was saying, listen, if you can give me $400,000 in 10 days, I'll make enough for the next investment. I'll send you the property. So in this situation, he said, listen, I'm only going to take the discount if we close in 10 days. If you cannot do it in 10 days, I'm going to put it on the market, go through the whole thing of people coming through, notifying the tenants, and get my full price. So I was on a deadline of, I have to get everything done, inspections that I need to do and everything in those 10 days, and get to closing, get clear title and everything in 10 days. So timing for him, he was saying, listen, I'm only giving you 10 days to get this discount price. And then also, not to notify his tenants. So also he was going to move out the area afterwards as well. So, just for, always ask that, because sometimes you can help with the next transaction. But since he was moving out the area, I couldn't help with the next transaction. So then the next question is then, since I'm wholesaling this to another buyer, how did I find a cash buyer? So in this situation, what I did, I sent out an email to the current cash buyer list I had at the time. And this was a very expensive property. Even though it was at a discount, it was extremely expensive. It was in a very high-end area, and it was a multi-unit. So it's very expensive. So someone needed to come up with a lot of cash, because remember, all my transactions, you have to close with cash, because otherwise, if I have to wait for the bank, I already know I'm not going to hit that 10-day mark. So you have to close with cash. And so then what happens, I sent my email out, and my solid buyers, they were having issues coming up with all this money and time. And I was like, oh, man, I'm not going to hit this deadline that he's giving me. And I kept, working and working. And lo and behold, the way I found the buyer then was through another real estate agent. Another real estate agent referred another real estate agent, and that real estate agent's client purchased the property. And all three of us got paid. And that's another thing. Do not expect people to help you close deals for free. Okay, this is a business. No one is going to, don't expect me or anyone else to bring you a buyer for free. That makes no sense. And so in this transaction, the agent that gave me the first referral that referred the second agent, he was given a finder's fee. And his finder's fee was $10,000. And then the agent whose client purchased the property, he got his regular 3% commission, which was pretty good, because even at a discount price, this house sold for over $500,000. So he got a good amount of money. And so that's an example of the reasons and that someone would sell a house at a discount, and also an example of how you can find a deal. In this situation, I called and just asked, hey, are you interested in selling this property at this time? Okay, another thing I wanted to mention is every single transaction or house that I've closed on has had a hiccup. Just something absolutely crazy that I have to fix, that I have to run around and resolve for us to get to closing. So if that happens to you, just feel at home when it happens, right? So in that situation, what happened with that house was, since it was a multi-unit, when we were getting ready to close, the county came back and they were trying to say that one of the units was illegal. So we couldn't close. And I knew he had documentation. So listen, we basically just, he was motivated and he went and found these documents. We were online searching through to find, all this documentation that the county did, approve all those units. Because sometimes some of these counties, these things you think is computerized and it's not. And, people are pulling things out of a drawer somewhere in a file and saying, oh, wait a minute, we don't have that. This property is 4 units or something like that. So that's what happened on that. Also on this deal, the day of closing, another, the seller calls me. Well, not even calls me. He walks into the closing room and says to me, did I send another potential buyer out to the house that morning? And I'm like, no. He's like, oh, some people came by. It was a man and a lady, and they were, you know, trying to make him an offer on the property and asking him if the property sold. So that's one of those situations you got to make sure you have your contracts in place, because people will try to steal your deal, okay, and go around you so that you don't get your wholesale fee. So we closed. It was a great transaction, and that's just an example of a wholesale deal that I wanted to give you. Okay? Bye-bye. Remember to subscribe to my channel, where I just share tips and things that I go through just trying to be successful in real estate, and, you know, just build a sustainable business, and, you know, have some residual income coming in from real estate. Those are, you know, the dreams that I have. So I just share whatever I learn with you. So just subscribe, and I put out a video every week. Bye-bye. See you next week, okay? Bye.